So I'm going to ask everybody to come up to the front. Yeah, because I am not a back to the kind of person. So come on up, ladies. You can sit in the second row. That's okay. But at least, yes, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. It's very kind. All right, well, we'll get started for our caregiver panel for Salute to Service Week. Very excited. My name is Wanda Wright, and I am the director for the Office of Veteran and Military Academic Engagement. I've been in that position for about almost 6 months now, so yay, I'm almost not new anymore. I'm a former director for the Arizona Department of Veteran Services, and that's the reason why this panel is really important to me. One of the aspects of that position was really watching out for our caregivers. If you know anything about the veteran population in Arizona, more than 50% are over 65. And what we find too is that their spouses are also over 65. And so now we have older veterans being taken care of by a spouse who's also older. My dad is a three-tour Vietnam veteran, and my mother is showing signs of dementia. And so it's really comes to heart for me about how I can care for my father as a caregiver, as he cares for my mother. And I think these are important discussions for us to have. I was 26 years in the military, and so I think that also brings a nuance too. Our veterans sometimes come home disabled, right? And someone has to care for them when they come home. And so we have this esteemed panel in front of us. And I'm going to just read a couple of statistics before we let them introduce themselves. So according to the Alzheimer's Association in 2022, there were more than 11 million unpaid family caregivers for people living with Alzheimer's disease alone. They provided more than 18 billion hours of care. 18 billion. It's incredible. And that's valued at $339.5 billion. And all of that is free, and I know you care for the person you're caregiving, but that's free labor essentially. Research shows that as their world shrinks and begins to revolve solely around the health and well-being of their loved ones, caregivers become at risk for depression, social isolation, stress, and in extreme cases, when ignoring their own health concerns, may cause death. So I just wanted to read that to you so you have some context of what we're trying to do here. All right, so I'm going to start at this end. And if you could just take a couple minutes and kind of explain who you are and why you're here.
Can you hear me? I am Anne Atkinson. I am a caregiver for my husband, who is a post 9/11 Iraq veteran who is 100% permanent and total disabled. He has toxic exposures, post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury. He requires 24/7 care. And as a caregiver, well, it took me a long time to even figure out that I was a caregiver. It took me about 4 years. And so I was alone, isolated. I didn't know that there were resources for myself and my family. So I decided after I became aware of all of the resources to help assist other military and veteran families who are in our family situation. So I became a fellow with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, and they support military and veteran caregivers. So a lot of legislation and policy and advocacy. I am an Arizona fellow, so I represent the caregivers here in Arizona. Some more statistics. There are 5.5 million military and veteran caregivers serving in our country, and they provide $14 billion a year in unpaid care services. They're at higher risk for depression, substance use issues, like you mentioned, not caring for their own bodies and their own selves because they are taking care of their loved one, which it is a labor of love. But it does still have its toll. So, I am a fellow. I work with veterans and their families. I also am the chair of, or co-chair of the Veteran Family Advisory Council. So we meet with the Phoenix VA every month and talk about this issues, brainstorm solutions, and our leadership. They listen to us talk about something to work on it. So that is me.
All right, so I'm Jake Dixon Atkinson. This is my mom, caregiver, as she said, and I was a caregiver kid, but as she said, we kind of didn't know like a ton about it. We just thought that it was our life and we just worked through it. And then I still remember when we got in contact with the caregiver services and stuff, so much better. And people, when they learn that I'm a caregiver kid, they don't really understand what that means. And my life's very different, but it's still kind of similar, which people don't really get. They, like my friends, they kind of idolize me a little bit. When they hear about it, they don't think that I'm just a regular kid. I'm just a regular kid who had good experiences and had to grow up a little bit quicker than most kids. And there's tons of us around the country, and just we don't really get as much of a voice as we should. So that's why I'm here. I'm helping to advocate for us and caregivers, but yeah, that's enough about me. So.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. My name is Ashley Adams. I am a licensed clinical social worker and I work with the VA Caregiver Support Program. I've been a social worker for almost 10 years, worked a lot in the hospital system, and then moved over to Veterans Affairs about 6 years ago, just for my passion. And I really enjoy that population, as well as supporting my family members who served and giving back into that community. I moved into caregiver support about 3 years ago and really watched our program expand to enroll, hundreds of new caregivers, give them supports and access to resources they didn't even know were available to them. Right now I'm the coordinator for our general caregiver support program, and I'm actually in an innovative position which I'm helping create more curriculum and supports for our caregivers. That's enough about me.
Hello, everybody. My name is Justin McBride. I'm here with Duet Partners in Health and Aging. I'm a veteran myself of the United States Marine Corps. Served during OIF and a few stints over there. In my role at Duet, I have a couple of hats that I wear. But if you don't know about Duet, we're a nonprofit that's been in the Valley for over 40 years, serving family caregivers, homebound adults, and grandparents raising grandchildren. The hat that I've been wearing the longest at Duet is part of our Meaning and Hope Institute, which is centered around a program called Finding Meaning and Hope that supports family caregivers of people with dementia or other cognitive impairments. It's a 10-week educational series that takes family caregivers through some of the complex topics that they face, especially when they're supporting someone and caring for someone that has dementia or another cognitive impairment. It's based on a book called Loving Someone Who Has Dementia. And the term that we use is ambiguous loss, which is basically a complex grief. And if you think about it, in society, we have a lot of ways to support people who are grieving after they lose a loved one. But what about when you're actively grieving and the person is still there? Caregivers hear all the time, well, at least you get to be with your person. At least, you have that time with them. And the ambiguity comes in where caregivers are both happy that they have that time, but incredibly just exhausted and spent, and ready for that journey to not be there, but also wanting it to still have that. So just that ambiguity, and the program really helps them unpack that. Aside from our Finding Meaning and Hope program and the Meaning and Hope Institute at Duet, we also provide support through support groups and peer mentoring and a number of different ways that we just get family caregivers in the same room, whether it's virtually or in a physical room like those of us here today, just to be around other people who get the journey and can connect with them. Today I'm here because I'm passionate about supporting both veteran families and caregivers. My mother, she was the primary caregiver of my grandmother, who before she passed away had early signs of dementia. And so I got to see that from the lens of seeing her go through all of that and not quite understanding that journey she was going through. So I'm here today to hopefully help other caregivers who are listening.
Hi everyone, my name is Sandy Gorley. I am the National Project Director for Legacy Corps for Veterans and Military Families. We're an AmeriCorps funded program that provides compassionate support and respite to caregivers in veteran and military family situations where we're enhancing or encouraging connection and improving quality of life. That's really our goal. Our program is housed at ASU. ASU receives funding from AmeriCorps and we pass it through to nonprofit organizations, government agencies, institutions of higher education, tribal communities, to deploy AmeriCorps members into their communities to support caregivers and provide those caregiver support services. So I had a chance to meet with Wanda right after she came on board, actually. So that is why I'm here. She remembered me.
I was brand new then, just a baby. All right, well, thank you, panel, for explaining that. So I would like each of you to give your definition of caregiver. I think it means different things to different people, and I'd like to hear all of your perspectives on it.
So to me, a caregiver is anyone who is providing support with, they're called activities of daily living, grooming, eating, bathing, toileting, mobility, medications, scheduling appointments, transportation. You can be helping with finances. You can be helping with someone who maybe have post-traumatic stress triggers to help calm them down, those kinds of things. So basically the way that I view it is if you are juggling things for another person because of an illness or an injury that they're not capable of handling themselves, then you are a caregiver.
So I'm similar background as my mom, obviously, but so my response is gonna be kind of close to that, but a little bit different. I would say my definition of a caregiver is anyone who puts others' needs before themselves. That's how I grew up, had to take care of my dad, and I also had to take care of my mom, and I tried to be the biggest support I could be for her. And it wasn't just caregiving for my dad, it was caregiving for the whole family, because obviously my childhood was very different than most kids, but at the end of the day, it's just putting others' needs before yourself, and I feel like anyone who does that is a caregiver, so.
I'm not sure you guys left us much of a description after that wonderful one. I think I will just echo what Anne said, as well as, specifically in terms of the help with activities of daily living, but also the day-to-day tasks. Getting out of bed, being able to make breakfast, to be able to know when your appointments are, or reminders for medication. I think it's ultimately someone who's in there helping and caring for that person to make sure that they succeed in day-to-day life.
What they said, and I'll add a little bit. With our finding meaning and hope program, we started training facilitators across the country. And so we have people reaching out where there are very limited supports, and they'll say things like, oh, well, I'm not really a family caregiver, but my person lives in Arizona, or they live in this state, and I heard about what you're doing, and I'm not a caregiver, but I'm doing all these things. And they list all these, like I'm scheduling Ubers for them, to get to the doctor, I'm getting food delivered to their house, all of these different things, like setting up the plumber. Like, even though they're in a different state, they're still a family caregiver. And that term family caregiver for me isn't just, I guess, by blood, right? Or you're not family necessarily. It's an unpaid caregiver, right? It could be a friend, a family member, it could be the neighbor that you realize, like, something's a little off, and I start checking in, once a week, maybe every day. So I think the caregiving, I guess the spectrum of family caregivers can be wide, from checking in once a week to every single day or all day long.
I echo what you're saying there, Justin, that in our program, we've tried to shift a little bit to calling our folks care partners rather than caregivers, just because it gives it takes away the helplessness from the person that's being cared for. They're not a helpless person, but they need somebody to close some gaps for them. And it might be someone who lives in another state scheduling appointments. It could be someone who's, in the home providing care 24/7, but there's a full range of ways that people can be care partners.
Wow, you guys. New semantics for caregiving, I think that's awesome. And the fact that your definition, Jake, was awesome. I mean, it really was. I appreciate that. All right, so as a person, maybe I realize now that I'm supporting someone, what do I do and how do I start as a new caregiver? And I'm gonna ask Ashley to see, kind of from her perspective from the VA, and then Justin from Duet to see, what can you guys define that as?
So when you find yourself in that situation and you're starting to think, I might be a caregiver, or I'm just needing some help, or I'm really not sure where to turn, call us. If you're caring for a veteran, give us a call. I have tons of contact information in the back if you need it, but we are here to help. We have multiple different programs, we have lots of different support, and we can also help get you connected with other partners in our community. For those that maybe aren't caring necessarily for a veteran, or a veteran that's caring for caregivers, there's great resources out there. Arizona Caregiver Coalition. I'm getting an echo. Yeah.
Right. So we're trying to get sound, we're having issues.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So we really just want to get folks connected. We want to be able to talk with you, know kind of a little bit about your situation, and then help kind of coordinate with you and match you with what might be the most beneficial and helpful. I think a lot of times it's very overwhelming, and so we try to balance giving you information while also not overloading you with tons of places to go and see. We want to make sure that we're connecting you directly with supports and services.
Yeah, I think a big part is that identifying as a fill in the blank family caregiver, care partner, or just a person who is caring for. We say the term loved one. I almost said it, but we say loved one. But sometimes there's some challenging relationships and family dynamics, so I try not to say that as much. But caring for someone who you want to make sure they're okay, right? And so that identification, I think, is so important, and not because of the label, but just understanding that your role is different, right? That you have a role. Maybe you are caring for a parent or caring for a spouse, and you still have that relationship, but in your role as a caregiver, it's just different, right? And I don't have the stats in my brain, but there has been research that shows that simply identifying, or not so simply, once you identify as a family caregiver, those who do, they're more likely to reach out for support and feel confident in getting the support that they need. So the identification part is really important. And then once you say, okay, I think I'm part of this group of people who are caring for, a friend or a family member, connect with others who understand that journey. Like, first and foremost, just connect with them, whether it's going to the VA, if you're a veteran family caregiver, if it's contacting Duet, whoever it is, find somebody who is a caregiver. And if you're not comfortable reaching out to an organization, there are people around you. Think about those in your neighborhood, somebody that may have been a caregiver. Don't do it alone, right? The journey of a caregiver is incredibly isolating oftentimes. So reach out and talk to somebody, and then take it from there.
Great. Thank you for that. So now let's talk about some services that you guys can provide, and specific detail services. So we got a lot of people online, I think, that want to hear about exactly what you guys do. So we'll start with Sandy, because I think she's got sort of an unusual organization, and they do great work. So let's hear how you provide services.
Well, as I shared in my introduction, we partner with agencies across the country and receive funding from AmeriCorps. If you're not familiar with AmeriCorps, it's kind of like the domestic Peace Corps. It's a federal agency tasked with bringing individuals and organizations together through service to tackle the nation's most pressing challenges. Serving veterans in military families is only one of their focus areas. We're fortunate enough to be in that arena. So, what we do is we train AmeriCorps members. They sign on for a year term of service. They can serve 300 hours for the year, 450, 900, 1200, just depends on their availability. But they commit to a term of service, providing 8 to 10 hours a week of respite and caregiver support to a family. Those supports can include like chores, meal preparation, non-medical respite, companionship, transportation to and from medical appointments, to get prescriptions, to access community services, putting together peer-to-peer networks, and helping veterans support each other while also giving their caregivers a break. Information dissemination on medical conditions specific to veterans. We also provide services to transition folks. Our goal is to keep people aging in place as long as possible and avoid institutional care, but we realize in some cases you just can't. So that AmeriCorps member can provide transitional support if someone's going from in-home to a long-term care facility to help ease the transition. We can do childcare respite. So veterans who need help with childcare, that is something we can provide. If there's a deployed spouse and the one back at home just needs a break, we can do that. Really any activity that supports or sustains caregiving is something that we are funded to do and train our AmeriCorps members to do. It just depends on which agency they're kind of partnered with out in the field.
Sandy, how old do you have to be an AmeriCorps volunteer?
17. Most of our agencies require their volunteers to be 18 or older, but AmeriCorps does allow for 17-year-olds. So anybody over the age of 17?
That's great. That's great. All right, Justin, want to talk about your services?
I would love to. How long do we have? I'll keep it a little close. You can give me a timer, a little speed timer. We provide a wide range of services specific for family caregivers. Our support groups are kind of the backbone of that support network, and we have virtual and in-person support groups in the East Valley, West Valley, online, so anywhere. We have people join us. I think farthest away was New Zealand that we had, so anybody can join us. Those are typically around 90 minutes. And if you're not too familiar with what a support group is, it's basically people sitting around and chatting in a semi-guided way about their shared experience. And so it's kind of like a free-flowing organic conversation a lot of the times, and so people can say what they're going through, or just some of the challenges, like, I'm having a lot of trouble with this specific thing, and somebody else can chime in. So it's like that peer support. And aside from the support groups, we have a more formal peer mentorship program. So caregivers who are in more of a stable place and they feel like they're ready to support another caregiver, we provide support and training to them so that they can be paired up with another caregiver and help them along the way. We also, the program I mentioned earlier, the Finding Meaning and Hope program, that's a 10-week educational program that includes videos and some homework assignments and discussion that's more guided than a support group. So if caregivers are looking for something has something more actionable, that's a really helpful program. And then aside from that, other programs that we have our grandparents raising grandchildren. So a little bit different. It's not focused on dementia, but those grandparents raising their grandchildren, many of whom may be veterans. They encounter a number of different challenges that other parents don't typically face. And so we have some similar support groups for them, as well as educational programs, some respite opportunities, and a whole bunch of different things. And then for our homebound adults, some who may be caregivers and some who may be kind of isolated, or there may be, if you're doing long distance caregiving and the person is, say, a veteran or veteran well, we can help match a volunteer who be training, background check, to get paired up with that homebound individual to get them to the grocery store, doctor's offices, some of those things that they, especially if you're a long distance caregiver, you may not be able to do. So all the service areas at Duet, while they're not all technically family caregiver focused, there is a bit of overlap. And if you go to duetaz.org, that's our website, duetaz.org, you can click on all the different links and find out about all of our services. For family caregivers, homebound adults, and grandparents, for over 40 years, they've been free of charge. So check those out.
So for Veterans Affairs and Phoenix VA, caregiver support, it's an umbrella. So we have two programs under that umbrella. Our first program is the Program of General Supportive Services. Our second program is the Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers. So both programs offer support, and so in general, both programs will provide resources for enhancing caregiver health, which is called Rich VA coaching. So it works with caregivers based on specific veteran conditions, PTSD, ALS, dementia, a couple other programs that we have. We also offer whole health coaching, so really focusing on the caregiver's whole health, not just physical activity or what they're eating and drinking, but their overall health and wellness, and really kind of help with them working towards their goals. We have our traditional drop-in support groups that we host virtually. We do self-care workshops. We have a Caregivers First program, which helps caregivers navigate challenges that they may face, or resources that they weren't not necessarily eligible, resources that they weren't aware of when they first maybe enrolled in VA healthcare. So that Caregivers First really helps them identify resources and supports, just kind of a brief overview of what is available for them as a veteran. We also do peer mentoring. We do education calls monthly through our national program office. We have a text messaging program that does, we have several different protocols, mostly focused on taking charge of your life and health, or stress management, dementia behaviors, lots of good information. They send tips, tricks, or just a positive message each week. We also help caregivers navigate the VA, challenges that they may face. We work within interdisciplinary teams to help coordinate what services they may need, connect them with community resources, and we also offer counseling. Now, for those that are eligible and are approved for our comprehensive program, we also offer insurance for those that are uninsured, a monthly stipend, as well as extended respite. Lots of resources.
A couple questions. So how do I enroll in that program or those programs?
Great question. So our general programs, our program of general caregiver support services is really for any caregiver caring for a veteran. There's a screening that we do, the veteran needs to agree, but if you want to connect with us, I highly recommend you give us a call. We are at 602-277-5551, extension 7777. And that'll get you connected with us. We'll call, we'll talk a little bit about our program, understand some of the things that are going on, challenges that you may be facing, and help coordinate with what might be best for you. If you're interested in our comprehensive program, our veterans have to be 70% or more service connected, and then there's an application to apply. The best way to apply for that program is on our website, which is caregiver.va.gov. And you're going to look for the Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers application. There's also the ability to print one and mail it in, but online is the fastest way to get to us.
Great, thank you for explaining that. All right, so we're going to move on to our next question. And this is about how to deal with medical providers when you're the caretaker. And so we'll start with Anne. Jake, if you want to answer something, and then I'd like the perspective of the services to see how you would recommend maybe caregivers address. So go ahead, Ann.
So in the beginning of my caregiving journey, I was not invited in the room at the VA. It was just not a thing. Ma'am, you can wait outside. I did get to the point that I didn't ask anymore, I just went in. And what I've learned to be very, very respectful, a very respectful squeaky wheel is what I like to call it. The providers are there. The best thing that you can do is involve yourself in the care team. There is a program at the VA called Campaign for Inclusive Care. The Elizabeth Dole Foundation created it alongside VA. And there are training modules that providers can take. Some people can get continuing education credits, it's free. I recommend caregivers do it too, whether, even if you're not a veteran caregiver, you can still learn. It's less than an hour. You really learn how to not only include yourself, but be beneficial to the provider. The best outcomes for veterans is supporting their caregivers so they can support the veteran. So a lot of times you'll have, and this is a problem all the time, veterans will go in and say, I'm fine, I'm fine. The provider can't help with something if they don't know about it, but then if the caregiver's sitting there saying, no, you haven't been taking your medication or you're having this symptom, those kinds of things. So really allying yourself with the provider, being a helpful person, not being a barrier for them, which I don't think that happens very often, but I think that's kind of the fear with some providers is it's hard to include them. So honestly, it's Campaign for Inclusive Care. And it's linked through the VA, through the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. You can Google it.
So she probably said that a little bit too well, so I don't got a ton to add, but I'd say my role in helping with my dad's medical stuff is helping my mom help him. When she'd take him to his doctor's appointments, I would either make dinner, or I'd go out get groceries, I'd drop my sister off, and that's when she was just out of the house. But when she was in the house, my role was still helping her, making sure my dad was in comfortable positions, making sure he had everything he needed, because it does get overwhelming, especially for caregivers and our veterans. But for the caregivers, anyone knows that being a parent is a full-time job. It's 24 hours a day, let alone being a parent and working. But being a parent, working, and caregiving, that's squeezing 3 full-time jobs into a 24-hour day, which when I can help out with whatever I can do, I'll always try. My whole goal was just to help my mom, help my dad, and I tried my hardest, obviously, hopefully, but at the end of the day, it's just doing whatever I can to help my family be set, and whatever I gotta do to do that, so.
How old are you?
I'm 18 years old,
Well, you are an upstanding young man.
I try.
Two hands for Jake, please. All right, we'll have Ashley answer. From perspective from the VA, how do we interact as caregivers with the provider, with our veteran?
So like Ann said, we have worked really hard to bring about a campaign for inclusive care into our hospital system, into our clinics, into our primary care and specialty clinics, because we do recognize the value and the importance of including family. And part of that is also partnering with the care recipient and, helping them advocate that I need my person here, I need my spouse, I need my parent, I need my child in the room. And then when they're not able to advocate for themselves in that aspect, pointing that out, like, I help him with this, I need to be here. And then continuing just to, I like the way you phrased it, Anne, that respectful, clean, squeaky wheel. It's about partnering with both the care recipient and the healthcare professional, because ultimately the goal is to keep the person safe, healthy, and have the best quality of life that they can. And so working together as a unit versus kind of pulling against each other, it's going to end up better results for our care recipients A lot of times, there can be cognitive impairments or memory impairments or physical disabilities that really limit what the veteran or care recipient can do for themselves. And so really inviting that family member in or care partner in is going to be what's going to help promote the best outcomes.
I think, just to kind of add a little bit to that, I think it's important to like understand where your person is on their journey as well. And there are times where having certain legal documents will be helpful, powers of attorney to help be able to get in the room, to help make certain decisions. But it's just kind of understanding where your person is on their journey, and then also understanding, as you're talking to a medical provider, if it's a primary care, are they your primary care and their primary care? Because things can then get kind of fuzzy, right, between your well-being and their well-being. So just kind of understanding that you want to talk to the providers about the well-being of your person, but you also need to be thinking about your own well-being. And so I don't know, just consider that. And don't be afraid to find a different provider if you're trying to advocate and you're not able to advocate for your person or for yourself. I think it's okay to find people who do understand that, right? There are some people out there who are providers, and you can talk to folks in support groups and message boards and find out, not just a provider, but even facilities who understand that. There are residential care facilities who understand the care partner journey, right? And I hear the term care partner is being used more in residential care, because you don't stop caring for a person if they get placed into a facility. So find a provider and find a facility, whatever it may be, where they do understand and they're willing to work with you if you can't with your current.
Great points, Justin. I think we forget sometimes, I think, that, as we're working with our person, that we need a little help. And that, you guys have really expressed well, I think, how you can do that and still feel like you're a caregiver, right? Because I think you don't want to give up your caregiving of your person, and you don't want to feel guilty about having respite and doing these things when you know your person's back at home who needs the help constantly. But I think these have been really good recommendations as to how a person who is caring for someone can take a minute for themselves and still understand that their person's getting good care. And I think that is a really important point in this panel. All right, so let's talk about training available for caregivers. I feel like that's something that I definitely want if I was a caregiver, because I don't even know where to start. And so actually, let's start with Justin on this. What kind of training do you actually give to a caregiver so that they're better and more efficient at taking care of their person?
So if you've been on an airplane, you know what they tell you about the oxygen mask, right? Put on your own oxygen mask first. I think first and foremost, make sure you're taking care of yourself. One, to take care of your person, and two, because you matter as an individual as well, right? It's not one is more than the other, you both matter, and you can't help yourself or your person if you're not taking care of yourself. So I think, one, where was the question? Training, thank you. I'm about to go off on a whole other spiel. Training, okay, thank you. Training, reel it in, it's been a day. And then, the reason I mentioned that is when it comes to training, there are educational programs out there that can help you manage your own well-being. The VA has a number of wonderful programs. They even there's a couple apps about mindfulness and wellness, and there's the personal training for your own well-being that can be helpful. And then there's things like the mentorship programs. The peer mentor programs are really helpful because it's somebody who has gone down that path before or is going through it and has maybe experienced some things already. And then, there's so much accessible right now online through webinars, through, our Finding Meaning and Hope program is a wonderful program, not just because I'm up here talking about it right now, but because I think it's just great. Even before I joined Duet and I learned about it, it's just really helpful. Finding Meaning Hope gives you a pathway to navigate some of these topics, while still getting to share some of your own personal experience. Other training opportunities, you can Google them, and I know that sounds simple and it's gonna be overwhelming. And so if you're not sure where to start, reach out to myself, reach out to somebody up here on the stage, and ask for the best place to go to, because depending on where somebody is on their journey, it may make sense to get them in a different kind of a program, right? Depending on where they're at. Yeah, I think that's.
Ashley, go ahead.
Thank you. So caregiving is a journey, right? So we all start in a different place, and it's a circle, and it ebbs and flows for a lot of people. So when I think of training, we think of that initial, I'm a caregiver now, what do I do? How do I help my loved one? And so we do, very basics. We have Building Better Caregivers. We have Reach VA that works with caregivers of veterans with specific conditions. We do peer mentoring. But then a lot of times you get very comfortable with the skills, and you get comfortable with how to care for the person, but you've lost kind of that ability to prioritize your own health and wellness. And so that's where a lot of our other training and supports come in. Reminding, focused on whole health, reminding that you're important, that you're human, that you are valued, and that you have goals and ambition and things that you want to accomplish too. So how do we help support you to do that while you're also caring for someone? So we can do things like caregiver health and well-being coaching. We can do counseling. We can match you with a peer mentor. That's what is going to kind of help you get to that next step or that next phase in your life. And then we can always reevaluate. So again, it's a journey. It's not stop and go. It's not necessarily that we started with this condition or this illness. It can change, just like we've seen dementia progresses, ALS progresses. What you needed, today isn't necessarily what you're going to need in 6 months, a year from now. And so we really work to individualize care and determine what is going to be the best fit for you.
So I'm going to ask you about counseling. So is it one-on-one counseling? Is it group kind of therapy? Do you have both?
So we offer individual therapy short-term, usually up to 6 sessions, and then we also offer 2 different types of coaching. And then we have different groups.
Wow, I think that's very valuable, especially one-on-one, because I don't know if everybody wants to share right away when they first learn they're a caregiver. It's kind of a shock to the system, and one-on-one seems like very appropriate for particularly new caregivers.
And I think it can be helpful, but I think sometimes too with groups, and one of the things that I share a lot with my caregivers is being connected with others reduces that isolation. It reduces that feeling of being alone and that you're the only person experiencing that. A lot of times we think we're very isolated in our situation, and other people don't necessarily understand or can relate. And when we bring somebody into a group, they have that ability to share a little bit. And a lot of our groups provide that education. So we give you tips and tricks and different skills that you can learn, practice those, and then also bring that back. So you could talk about that. And Ann and I co-facilitate a group together, and we get to describe, talk about whole health, talk about values, and really help caregivers identify the areas that they want to enhance or improve, while also being able to bring it back to, Anne gets to share her experiences and what helped her. Somebody else gets to share what's helped them or maybe what's not been the most helpful, and people learn together.
You're a great straight man, because I'm about to ask Anne. So what have been your greatest challenges as a caregiver?
Do we have all night to talk about that? I think overall for everyone, the first issue is self-identification. We don't do that. I'm just a mom, I'm just a spouse, I'm just a kid. We don't look at ourselves as caregivers. So the first thing is self-identification. That was a huge problem for me. It actually took the VA caregiver coordinator being like, you are a caregiver, for me to say, oh, okay, maybe, I don't know, but obviously it was. The second biggest issue is that isolation piece. You are not the only one. We talked about the statistics earlier. not everyone has the exact same journey, but it's almost the same undercurrent, the same plot. It is so powerful for caregivers to be in the same room together or over Zoom together. You just have this, I don't have to explain it. They just get it. You can say, I am having the worst day and my veteran's really bugging me. Other people wouldn't understand that, but when you're in that peer space, they're like, yeah, me too. I was like that yesterday, right? It's something that is so powerful that you cannot get somewhere else, that camaraderie. So having that, not having that would be the challenge. My biggest issue, I think it's been my entire caregiving journey of 11 years, has been that my husband does need 24/7 care. So finding that backup care, accepting that I do too need a break, that I do need respite, that I do need whole health is my favorite. If you can access it through the VA, if not, the American Red Cross Military and Veteran Caregiver Network offers it. It is so good. That is the single program that completely changed my caregiving journey because I had totally lost my identity. I don't know if you remember, but it was just so caught up in being a mom and a caregiver and just the rat race of all of that. I didn't know who I was anymore. Whole health helped me find who I was in this new role instead of being sad at the loss of what I wasn't anymore or what my family wasn't anymore, what we had hoped for our future. And we learned to thrive in it, to control the things that we can, and to let go of the things that we can't. And that's really what Ashley and I talk about a lot in those groups. Like, honestly, if there's one thing that you can do for yourself is whole health, and the VA has it, and the Red Cross.
Want to add a little?
Oh, I'd love to. So I think the biggest thing that stuck out there for me is that you're not alone. My entire childhood, my entire life, up until I was 17, so I got a wonderful opportunity from MSEC and the Elizabeth Dole Foundation to go to Washington, D.C. and meet the First Lady. But when I did that, that was the first time in my entire life that I had met other caregiver kids, and we all just clicked. One of them is actually my best friend, and I'm not gonna lie, all of our dads are like basically the same person, which was pretty funny, but that's seriously the first time in my life that I was like, there's other kids like me, because being a veteran kid, it's a bit different from being a regular kid, but being a veteran kid with a disabled parent or a parent who needs help, completely different spectrum. And after I found that, it was like a piece that I had been missing, just kind of got there. And it's the same thing as being a caregiver, you're not alone. But through that, I actually found out that there were other caregivers at my school, and I sat right next to one of them, and I knew her for 3 years, and I had no idea that she was a caregiver kid. And her mom had gotten no help, she was undiscovered, and through her, I actually kind of indirectly, directly helped their family out by sending them to these websites. And because I just told her, I was like, I know exactly what you're going through, and I can't believe that I've known you for 3 years, and I had no idea, because even at my school, I thought I was the only one in my life up until I was 17, I thought that I was the only one, and just, after I got that help, I got someone I could talk to, because being a caregiver is stressful, being a caregiver kid is extremely stressful. You have school, I had a job from when I was 16, and there were weeks where I'd work almost 40 hours a week and be in high school. And I had to take care of my dad, and I had to take care of my mom, and I had to take care of my siblings, my family, and just after I met other people like me, it was seriously the piece I needed.
It's great to hear. A statistic, there's 2.3 million caregiver kids, and they're called hidden heroes. And you can see why, right? He just told you that the one sitting next to him was a hidden hero, taking care of mom, and no one even knew about it. Wow, that's incredible, really. All right, so I guess what I would like to ask next are, what advice would you give to a caregiver? And I'll ask Anne again.
The advice that I would give, The journey's not linear, it's circular. And you can be in a groove and things are going great and be like, I figured it out finally. And then something happens and it's okay. It happens to all of us. It's not just you. It's not that you did something wrong. It's just where you're at in your journey. So first of all, don't be hard on yourself. Second, ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. And the biggest thing that we see, and we laugh at, it's not funny, but it's funny. We, as caregivers, are scheduling appointments and taking care of all the things all the time. I don't want to call and schedule my own dental appointment, right? I don't want to, I'm sick of it. So then maybe it goes a little further out. Take care of yourself too. Go to your doctor, go get your teeth cleaned, go get counseling, go have someone come in from Duet and do respite, and go to Target and go up and down the aisles. Do those tiny little things for yourself. It doesn't have to be this big bubble bath moment. It doesn't have to be a big vacation. Even if you're just drinking your coffee in your backyard in the morning for 5 minutes, do those tiny little things, and it really does add up. If you don't do those things, that adds up too.
All right, Ashley, what do you want to add? And I'll come back to you, Jake.
Well, I echo everything Ann said, but I think my biggest advice is to take care of yourself too. Seek help, seek support, seek respite, and respite doesn't necessarily have to be a formal thing. It can also be things that you create in your house. Find hobbies, activities, things that you can do. One of the exercises I love to do with caregivers is reconnecting them to old hobbies or activities or things that they used to enjoy before their caregiving role. And looking at realistically, what does their caregiving entail? We know a lot of times it feels 24/7, but sometimes we need to break it down and see, where do I have time in my day? Where can I fit this? Where can I schedule myself for time? And, find those activities that you can do at home. Is it crafts? Is it, research? Is it, activities that you have sent to your house? They have all kinds of craft activities these days. Meeting friends with coffee, spending time in nature, just taking that time for yourself. Because ultimately, if you don't care for yourself, you're not going to be able to care for your loved one. And unfortunately, there's so many statistics, and a lot of what we look at is our caregivers that are passing before their care recipients. And that's the last thing we want to see.
All right, Jake.
So echoing both of those, and I would say, honestly, one of the biggest parts of being a caregiver and a caregiver better embracing the parts of it that are not so fun. So there were days when my mom would be busy, she'd be at work, and I would want to go hang out with friends, but my dad needs someone to watch him 24/7. I would want to be hanging out with friends and I'd have to stay home. Honestly, I was pretty irritated. Those days were not so fun. But figuring out and embracing the part of it, whether it was going with the store to my dad, because he can't or he's not supposed to drive by himself, but going so embracing those parts and going to the store when in reality I would not want to be there at all, I'm just going to be honest, but connecting with him, because my dad, he couldn't always be, and my situation wasn't always what I wanted, but even with my dad's struggles, he was still always what I needed. I definitely think growing up in that situation has helped me become a better person and realize that everyone has their struggles, and even people who seem rock solid, because my dad, he will not admit anything's wrong with him. Like my mom was saying at the VA, but even just in his personal life, he's like, I'm completely fine, nothing's wrong, everything's crumbling a little bit, but that's okay. You really just got to stick together as a family and find the resources that you need, regardless of if it's me helping out my mom or watching my dad when he can't, or when he needs to be watched, and helping my sister get to school or things that she wants to do. And as a family unit, there are days when we'd be so stressed and we would not like each other very much, I'm gonna be honest. But even just getting through that and talking about it, I feel like talking about it is the biggest thing. Because we had a bit of a different family unit, and every kid that has a veteran family, let alone veteran family that's caregivers, they go through this. And seriously, the single most important thing that you can do is just talk about it, even if you do not want to talk about it, and especially if you don't want to talk about it.
I need to add, my husband does not drive by himself, and that's what he was saying, he has to go with him, whether he wanted to or not. The other thing that I thought of that we do a lot is laugh or cry. I think we got sick of crying about it, so we just laugh at everything and kind of get this dark sense of humor and those things, but that's okay, it's military anyway, so might as well laugh at the heart, and it just diffuses the situation, so.
Well, that was great, thank you. So it's time now to open up the floor for any questions from either our public audience or our virtual audience. Do we have any questions? Yes, young man, please stand up.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Hey everyone, pardon me. I'm Benno. I work at the Pat Tillman Veterans Center. Thank you all so much for your service and thank you for being here. My question is about how you take care of yourselves. Through my role at BTVC, deal with these kind of issues or trying to advocate on behalf of our military connected learners, right? At the end of the day, I get to go home and chug one and play PlayStation when that's not always an option. And even for our folks that, again, do this professionally, how do you convince yourself? I want to give you a chance to talk about how you can flip that switch and be a little bit selfish and do those things that are necessary. And Jake, if you don't mind, sir, I'd love to start with you. Before I turn the mic over, I'm sure everyone here will agree with me. I'm in awe, sir, of what a brilliant and compassionate and articulate young person you are. Thank you especially for everything you've done.
So you gotta embrace the not so fun parts of it, as I said before, but also there's days when all of us are just in a bad mood and I wanna be hanging out with my friends, my mom just needs a break. My sister is, I don't know, she's off doing my sister things, which, but finding the little moments where you can just relax and take a break. And I'm gonna be honest, it's almost a lot of the time like we were taking shifts. My mom would be with him while I was at school, I'd get home, and if I was working, I would get home at around 2. I would enjoy doing stuff with him. I love watching him play video games. It's like the funniest thing on the planet. And even then, it's just finding the little moments that you can you can enjoy yourself. And even at work, just finding the fun parts of stuff that you don't want to do is super important. I actually loved going to work. I didn't love working 40 hours a week and school. Trust me, that was terrible. But going to work, enjoying what you can while doing something that you don't want to do. And then those days, there were days when I'd take days off from school and work. We would always call mental health days because sometimes you're just so done and you just can't keep doing anything anymore and you just need to be by yourself. And just communicating those needs was super important. Everyone in my family would do it, including my dad. My mom, there's days when she's like, buddy, I just need some help. And then just reciprocating that helped everyone out. And then, because I was trying to proponent, if one of us is down, then all of us are down. Not saying that you need to be 100% all the time, because as caregivers and parents and everything now, you can't be 100% all the time. That's too draining. But when you can just talk about it, it'll help the whole family out. So, yeah.
Go ahead, if you want. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Do we have any questions out there? Any questions online? Okay.
She just wanted to know that, so somebody wanted to know the names and the organizations of the panelists, but I answered that in there, so.
Ken Garcia, Office of Congressman Ruben Gallego. I'm kind of speechless, because I'm familiar with Annie, but I've never heard the journeys that they've gone through. Was the journeys that you guys are going through, was it immediately or was it gradual, where you immediately became a caregiver, or was the role that you picked up a slow growing process where today it wasn't there, and yesterday it wasn't there, but today it is?
So with my husband's illness, he has neurological issues and paralysis episodes. I'm not sure if we mentioned that, but it came on gradually. So, and that's my journey, that it started slow and was just this build. And so for example, if he has a paralysis episode and he falls and we didn't know, it took us, and there's a learning curve. We had gone to the grocery store, hadn't figured out that we couldn't leave him alone. And there's the suffocation risk, there's a fall risk, head injury, there's so many things. And actually the caregiver support program, we bounced back and forth, like, okay, we had this issue, what do we do? That's when we figured out we couldn't leave him alone anymore. So mine personally was kind of a slow burn. I feel like we have figured it out now. When we mess up, we come together as a family and figure out how to help in a situation, like if he can't talk, which he can't when he's in an episode, what did you need at that time? I was hot, or I was cold, or so we have these questions. We check the airway, we check temperature, we check if his eyes are feeling sensitive. We go through this whole list, and then every once in a while there's one that we didn't know. So we go through the whole list of how to make dad comfortable, right? We're all really good at it now. I do have to say a lot, especially for post 9/11 veterans or someone who has a sudden illness, it's immediate. Especially if they're in the hospital, say Walter Reed or something like that with a catastrophic injury, then it's all of a sudden, which I think would be harder because it's this overnight change and you get home and you don't know what you're doing. And that hasn't been my journey, but I have seen it a lot. And it's really, really difficult.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ben Jeffrey. I'm with Leah Health Group. I work a lot with disabled combat veterans. Just to repeat what others have said, my mind has been blown by the just sheer sense of understanding, trying to understand just by the way you're talking and what you go through and how much you pour your heart into what you're doing. I don't think you could do it unless you have the biggest heart in the world. And it is the most admirable. I'm a very articulate person, and I could go on forever about how beautiful all of you are for what you do, and especially you, sir. And I would like to ask one question. Can you guys, each in your own way, however you see fit, can you share with us a very lighthearted, happy, or funny story that you can leave with us to show us what are the cool moments?
I have a good one. So, as I mentioned, my husband has the paralysis episodes, and our kids were really little when this started. And thank goodness the oldest let us know that it was scary for him. So we came up with this torture dad thing when he can't do anything about it. And I give the kids makeup and nail polish and markers. And they would do his hair and his makeup and paint his nails and color all over him on his tummy, right? All those things. So it became this funny, lighthearted thing, and the kids learned it's okay. Dad's not hurting. It's okay. And we have a lot of pictures if you ever want to see. It's pretty funny. They still do it every once in a while, even though they're older.
So for me, this one's a bit of the dark humor that she was talking about, but No family secrets, I promise, this isn't one. But my dad is blind in his left eye, and he still makes fun of us because all of us, we both have contacts in right now. We can't see anything, and he'll still make fun of us. He's like, I'm literally blind, and I still see better than you guys. So we can't find anything, man. It's probably genetic or something, but like, we'll have something right in front of our face, and where? I can't find it, and he'll bully us a little bit about it, but just finding the humor when applicable and when possible, just definitely makes everything better. So that's mine.
This is a tough question. So maybe not funny, but really amazing and just a beautiful story is I worked with a caregiver and veteran, and they were very new to VA and trying to get services, and needless to say, we were able to get them connected, but I remember talking with both of them and just the humor, even talking about the hard stuff. The laughter and some of the most successful and I think really companionship between the caregiver and care recipient is when they have humor. And they can laugh about the hard things or get through some of the tough things. Because the reality of it is, if you're doing hands-on care, nobody wants help in the bathroom, no one wants help in the shower. So if you can find the humor and the laughter, I think it makes things just a little bit easier.
Something that I've heard from different caregivers in our support groups, and it comes up fairly often, is especially for caring somebody or someone with dementia, or who has some type of a memory issue, is sometimes the caregivers will get so stuck in trying to be like, well, that's, I guess, trying to like refresh the memory or like say like, oh, this is the current reality. But then they'll just joke and they'll say, well, sometimes, they're gonna forget. So you can just kind of go with it. And you can just like, go into their world for a minute. Or when they're like, oh, we need to do this tomorrow. We need to be ready to get, well, we need to get ready to drive to California. When we're not driving, oh, yep, got the bags packed, we're ready to go. And sometimes they'll just really dive into it and have fun and be silly. And like, oh, I got the bathing suits and I got the this and I got the that. And so it's, again, like finding those opportunities when you can just chuckle about it. And I think those opportunities come up a lot when I hear caregivers talking in the support groups or in our Finding Meaning and Hope program, is they get to laugh about things that they feel comfortable laughing about it when they might not, if it wasn't a group of caregivers. Like they might feel like there's like that dark sense of humor, right? So being around other caregivers, I think, makes it easier to find those little lighthearted moments.
I have a couple stories. A few years ago, we asked our caregivers to submit videos, testimonials about how the AmeriCorps members have affected their relationship with their care recipient, but there was one video in particular that got everybody in tears. So it's not super lighthearted, I guess, but it was just really uplifting to see this. There's a lot of intergenerational work that goes on. We have college students that are serving older adults. Like, how cool is it that these 19, 20, 20-year-old students are giving up their free time to hang out with old people? That's kind of cool. Well, this gentleman that was the care recipient, not the caregiver, got choked up talking about how much his AmeriCorps member had become his best friend. Coming in and just spending time with him and making a real big difference, like brightening up his day. Oh, it's a good day today because my guy's coming over. We're gonna hang out, we're gonna tell each other stories. So that kind of stuff is really cool. There's another one, we have an agency that works primarily with folks that have cognitive decline. It's called the Alzheimer's Project in Tallahassee. They have this world-renowned physicist that's one of their clients. Can't remember what day of the week it is, loves to play Go Fish. His favorite thing in the world. What do you want to do today? Let's play fish. Let's play fish. So it's cool to see how all of those long-term memories periods don't really go away. That there's these things that just get people to light up when they spend time together, so.
Thank you, Sandy. That was a great way to end the panel. Please give a hand to our illustrious panel. They did a fantastic job. Thank you, guys. That was really awesome. And so now we can eat, drink, and be merry. And I thank all of you who attended today. I hope you learned something. This has been recorded, so we'll send you a copy if you want it. And we will share the recording with the world if we can. So thank you, everyone.